I want to thank President Benson and the Board of Trustees for allowing me to be here. It's one of the great privileges of my life to be with you today. My husband, Bill Beadleston, and I love having our home in Charleston. Of course, I realize that we have to live here another 100 years before we're considered true residents of Charleston. We're working on it. It's a great day of celebration, and word has come to me that this class does not need any lessons on how to celebrate. You better live up to that promise. And how can they not love a day like this? They're surrounded by people who are terribly interested in them, some who admire them immensely, and many who actually love them. And what I say is, enjoy it, because it isn't going to be like this when you come to life on the outside. At that point, you're going to face maybe hostility, a certain amount of rejection, and definitely indifference. Now, this is good, because just as a happy childhood is the worst possible preparation for life, an easy transition from school to work will not teach you of what you are made. And I believe you are facing a life of work which is really different than the work you've just been doing. Now, I define work very broadly. Work is work, marriage is work, and parenting, that's really work. So don't be too concerned. As you look into the future, I'd like to give you 6, what we would call in business, if you'll forgive the jargon, 6 success factors that might help you along the way, whatever your work turns out to be. Don't be concerned if your first work is something less than the glamorous, cushy job you had in mind. First jobs that are gritty rather than glamorous have turned out to be the secret of success for many achievers. They credit the small and lowly, the rude kinds of work for teaching them the most about how to handle life. David Ogilvy, the founder of Ogilvy, which is of course a huge successful company today, said that the most important job experience he ever had was as a mere door-to-door salesman for the Aga cooker. And if you know what the Aga cooker is, it's not easy to sell. And he credits this with teaching him to face rejection and then to get up and do it all over again. So a big part of his success was not only that he could create great ads, but he could sell them. So don't worry about choosing grit over glamour. Now, future success hinges really on your finding the right work for you. For this, you're going to have to go backward a bit. You were born an original, and then like the rest of us, you began to copy people around you. But you're going to have to return to that original self. It begins with the exterior, which you've just spent 4 years, or maybe for some of you more, refining and tuning up your education, your experience as an outward striver. Your resume will be the result of that, and of course your diploma. But your step 2 is to translate for your future employer prospect, or maybe a spouse prospect, what that education and experience means in terms of skills. But the 3rd step is like that one giant step for mankind. It is to know the inner self. You have within you powerful interior drivers, and listen to what they affect. They affect how you do the work and how you engage with others. It's important to search out these traits and acknowledge them. Over time, I discovered that my signature inner traits were really more important in my career than all my so-called expertise about brands. And I might as well confess that one of my traits was, in a phrase, all things being equal, I'd rather be in charge. Now, this is not anything I recommend, and my husband doesn't definitely recommend it. But I had to acknowledge it, and when I was young and in business, it got me in a terrible amount of trouble. But as I grew more sophisticated and understood what was ahead, it literally shaped my career as a troubleshooter for companies that were in trouble. Please do this inventory and then integrate what you know about your inner self with the outer. Out of that will come something really priceless, self-confidence. As Rilke, the German poet, says, without this inner married to the outer, it will be as though you were standing on fishes, not too stable. Leadership in any forum comes from being authentic, and authentic comes from knowing your whole self. Another success factor is to care about your character, and you want to aim high here, not in terms of salary or title, but in qualities like trustworthiness, integrity, because looking back over your life from your rocking chair, you want to like who you've become. Qualities like this are acquired day by day in the midst of life. You can't just catch up with them later. Let's take bravery. For some, bravery is having the nerve to hold up your hand to speak. For some, it's in the battlefield. But if every day you go toward that which makes you uncomfortable, then you'll be ready for test day. When I was a junior account executive at J. Walter Thompson, Chicago, there was one other professional woman, and she was a star, way over me, a big-time creative power. As I was walking by in the hall one day, I heard her talking to a group of men, and they must have been very amused. They were really laughing. I realized that she was doing a really deadly mockery of my Texas accent. It sounded like, I don't think it's the right thing to do, or something awful like that. Not only did my face burn, I had very little to say. Now, my idea of bravery was to speak up in a world of men. So there was really no way I could accept that. I found myself at her door, and I startled both of us by saying, by the way, with no drawl, I'm not leaving here until you and I agree we can present a united front to the men. Well, that day she ended up taking me to lunch and teaching me to drink Scotch mist, which is a real long lunch. But we ended up being 2 multiplied. Now, the 5th success factor is communicating effectively. You cannot enter a world for which you do not have the language. When I worked for the State Department and the Pentagon and the CIA, the place was awash in indecipherable initials and codes. My boss, Secretary Powell, knew that I was mystified. One morning, a fellow reported something about India and Pakistan and PNG. And Powell said, "Got that, Beers?" Well, I didn't get it, but I thought a bluff was in order. So I said, "Sure, Procter & Gamble is coming to Pakistan." He said, "No, it's PNG, persona non grata." So you too will have to learn a new way of communicating. It won't be what you want to say, as it was here in college, speaking to very interested audiences. It will be what they want to hear, what they're willing to hear. Here's the golden rule in all communication. It's not what you say, it's what they hear. And you're going to have to start by learning their unique language. My final point is to make you aware of what the winning companies of tomorrow are focused on as their success factor. Have you noticed that men and women are different? I'm not talking about the differences you've recently specialized in. Oh. Well, they had to have some comment. No, it's about differences that the newly emerging workplace cares greatly about. You know what? These differences start early. A 10-year-old girl asks, "Hey, who's your girlfriend?" A 10-year-old boy asks, "Can you pee as far as I can?" Boys grow up to be men who are physical and wholehearted about competing and striving. Men are good negotiators, planners, organizers. Women have a kind of peripheral vision. We comprehend what's meant versus what's said. Women understand emotion and feelings because they're not afraid of intimacy. And they can describe these intangibles because to women, words are our choice of weapon. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list of differences, but the point isn't better than one another. The point is companies everywhere know that respecting and bringing these differences to bear on problems and opportunities will actually create a far better universe. And from my own experience, I can tell you it's just a lot more fun. I'm going to close with a poem that asks a question you might ponder. David White wrote this poem because people kept accusing us of worshiping the gods of money and success. It's titled Self-Portrait. It doesn't interest me if there's one God or many gods. I want to know if you belong or feel abandoned, if you can know despair or see it in others. I want to know if you are prepared to live in the world with its harsh need to change you. If you can look back with firm eyes and say, this is where I stand. That's what I hope for, that you're prepared to live in the world that will change you, and that when that happens, you can be firm and say, this is where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you.